What's up, Habibis? This is 5 Things You Did Not Know About Zombies number 6 Mob of the Dead special. This is going to be a long video, so sit back and relax, grab a snack, and you guys are really going to like this video, so let's just get right into it. Number 1, the inspiration behind the golden spork and the symbolism of the steps it takes to get the golden spork and like what it symbolizes in the real life escaping of Alcatraz. Alright, so the first step of acquiring the golden spork while doing the Easter egg is, first of all, you have to throw the tomahawk, aka the Hell's Retriever or the Hell's Redeemer, at this poster right here, right? And obviously, as we all know, once you do that, it reveals a hole in the back of the jail cell, right? Now, this is a reference to how the real life people who escaped Alcatraz, this is a reference to how they escaped by taking spoons and digging holes in the back of the walls. The spoon is representing the golden spork. And like I just said, they used the spoons to escape. So that's making a reference to the golden spork. Alright, now step number 2 for acquiring the golden spork is you have to come back here as you know, as we all know, and you have to shock the spoon right there. Now there's a specific reason why they left a spoon right there. First of all, in the real life Alcatraz, the people that escaped, basically they would dig the holes in the back of the cell, then from there they would go in the back right here, and they would climb up to the roof by climbing onto the pipes and stuff. Now before they climbed up to the roof, they left their spoons like on the bottom on the ground right there. So that's why the spoon is actually right there when you're playing Mob of the Dead, because the real life prisoners left their spoons at the bottom before they went climbing up. Also, if you guys notice right here, there's a piece of cloth that's kind of like in that hole in the ground. Now, what this may symbolize is basically, in the real life, you know, the real life people that escaped Alcatraz, basically they built a raft out of cloth, you know, some clothing and raincoats. And basically they would take these pieces of cloth and they would take the raincoats and carry them up to the roof with them. So they would sneak all this clothing and raincoats and stuff like that through the holes, and they would take it up with them. So maybe that's what that piece of cloth is representing or symbolizing. How they used to bring the cloth up with them so they could build the raft on the roof. Alright, next. Now if you guys notice, there is a skull right here. Now basically, if you guys don't know, the real people that actually tried to escape Alcatraz, their names were Franklin Morris, John Anglin, and his brother Clarence Anglin. Also, they had their friend Alan West. So it was 4 people in total that tried to escape, but only 3 people escaped. Franklin Morris, John Allen, and Clarence Allen are the only people that escaped, and Alan West, he was the one that was left behind. And I believe he ended up dying at the prison. So this skull right here is most likely what that represents. And the reason Alan West basically didn't escape Alcatraz, the reason he couldn't escape, is because he couldn't dig a big enough hole with his spoon to make a big enough hole in the back of his cell for him to crawl out. But the other 3 prisoners could, and he ended up dying at the prison. So that's what the skull represents, John Allen dying and not escaping. Alright, now the next step for acquiring the golden spork is the diner spoon. If you have to like go in the cafeteria and go all the way back in the cafeteria, and you have to throw your Hell's Retriever at this spoon back here. Now this represents how in the real life Alcatraz, the way they escaped and the way they got those spoons to dig out of their cells was by them stealing the spoons from the cafeteria. So this is why one of the steps in getting the golden spork is to take the spoon from the cafeteria by throwing your tomahawk at it. Alright, so we covered the 2 symbolisms and meanings behind the first 2 spoons. But what about the 3rd spoon? You could find the 3rd spoon up in the shower stirring the blood. Alright, this is where things get interesting. So John Anglin had the idea of the whole spoon escape by digging the holes in the back of the cells in the first place. He's the one who came up with that idea in the first place. So the interesting thing about this is John Anglin actually used to work in the showers. And when working in the showers, he had access to a bunch of supplies like spoons and a bunch of the cloth and raincoats and stuff like that that they used to build the raft to escape Alcatraz. So that's why whenever you pick up the golden spork at the end of the Easter egg and that hand comes out of the shower, this is representing John Anglin, the one who used to work in the showers and the one who had the idea of the spoon escape and the golden spork. Also, something interesting is that in the real Alcatraz prison, basically the system was that every 2 weeks everybody would get 1 shower, including John Anglin. He would get 1 shower every 2 weeks, right? This may be a reference to the last step of the Easter egg, where you have to stay in the shower rooms for 2 rounds and kill zombies for those 2 rounds. This may be a reference to how John Anglin and all the prisoners had to come to the shower room every 2 weeks. Now you guys might be thinking, well, that didn't really explain the whole inspiration of why a spoon was... Why is a spoon our weapon, basically, and Mob of the Dead? Well, basically, back in the cafeteria and the diner room, that in Alcatraz, that was known as the most dangerous room in all of the prison. Basically, they had a bunch of guards and everybody with their guns watching and everything. And this was because, first of all, this room was like the most packed with all prisoners, and you know, they weren't handcuffed and stuff like that because they were eating, and it was just packed with a bunch of prisoners. Also, what some of the prisoners would do is obviously they're eating with spoons and forks, right? And in Alcatraz, keep in mind that the spoons and forks were made of metal. So what they would do is they would steal the spoons and forks and stab the guards with them as an attempt to escape, right? So they would use them as shanks. So what do you get when you combine a spoon and a fork together? Of course, you would get a spork. So that's where the idea of the golden spork came from. Now, you guys might be wondering, why is the spork golden? Why is it the golden spork? Well, the reason the spork is golden is because the spork to the prisoners, it represented and symbolized like the key way out of Alcatraz. It was like the key to Alcatraz, their way out, right? And the real life key to Alcatraz was golden. So that's why it is called the golden spork, because the spork was their way out of Alcatraz. It was like their key out of there, obviously by digging the holes in the back of the cells. Now, also something interesting is, like I said, the cafeteria was known in the real life Alcatraz to be the #1 most dangerous room in the whole prison. So in the real life Alcatraz, in the cafeteria, they had traps set up connected on the ceiling. This is why in Mob of the Dead, we have the acid trap in the cafeteria hung up on the ceiling, just like the real Alcatraz prison, where they had traps in the cafeteria just in case all those prisoners got out of hand. Number 2, where are we going? Secret code. Now, everybody knows on Mob of the Dead there's the second hidden song, and basically the way you get that song is you have to go up to this little code thing right here and you have to type in 935. Now, we all know the song Where Are We Going? It starts playing, right? But the thing is, basically the guy who wrote the song, his name is Kevin Sherwood, right? And I believe he writes a bunch of other songs for the zombie storyline, but basically for the song Where Are We Going, Treyarch kind of helped him and guided him with the lyrics for the song so it matches up with the zombie storyline. So basically on Kevin Sherwood's official YouTube channel, he posted the lyric video for the song Where Are We Going? And since Treyarch helps him out with the Easter eggs and stuff like that and putting meaning into the songs, Treyarch left a little Easter egg in the song. Now basically there's this one part of the song where like nobody's talking, it's just like the music is playing and everything, and like there's no lyrics on the screen, and all you see is these codes right here. I'm gonna show y'all what I'm talking about. Alright, so this is the video that Kevin Sherwood posted for the lyrics of Where Are We Going? Now let me fast forward over here. Alright, so here we go. We're in the middle of the lyric video, and these weird codes just pop up on the screen while none of the lyrics are like, while nobody's singing or talking. Alright, so people were really confused when they first saw this, but after a while, Kevin Sherwood, he released kind of like a code reader for this, and he started releasing hints for us, and he eventually released a code reader, which is this right here on screen. Alright, so I'm going to teach y'all how to decode this. So basically what I'm typing here at the top is the code, like the letters and stuff that we saw in the middle of the music video, and what I'm typing here on the right is the code reader that Kevin Sherwood posted. Alright, now according to the decoder, each one of these letters equals another letter. So let's just get started and start decoding this. Alright, so the first letter we have is a lowercase t, right? Now let's look at our decoder over here, and it says that a lowercase t equals an L. So we'll put an L down right there. Next we have a lowercase a. Okay, let's see what lowercase a equals on the decoder. Alright, so lowercase a equals an E, but it also equals an I, if you guys see right there, and it also equals an M. So what do we do? This is kind of a weird situation. So what we do is we write down all the possibilities for what a lowercase a can equal. Alright, the next letter we have is a capital T. So let's look on the decoder over here, and a capital T equals a T, just like a lowercase t. So right next to the last one, we would write a lowercase t. Alright, now the next letter we have a capital G, and a capital G equals a lowercase g. So now we would write the lowercase g. Alright, so after you decode all the letters, this is what the final product looks like. Alright, so here's a better picture of the whole thing decoded in one group, right? So basically our goal is to make this top line right here, we have to make it into a sentence, right? So the bottom letters that are dangling down below are possible letters that we can use to make the top line into words. Alright, so let's look at the first one. So we have the letters I and M dangling below, right? So can we replace I and M with the letter E to make it a word? No, we can't, so we just leave it with the E, so that makes the word let. Next, we have the letters W and B dangling below. If we replace W and B with that O, is that going to make a word? No, it's not, so we just leave it at G-O, go. Alright, then we have the letter A, so it looks like the next word is supposed to be and, so we would take the N and the D and drop that down below. Next, we have a T, and then the possibility of an H and an E, so it looks like the next word is going to be the. Next, we have a B or an O. So in order to tell what's the next word going to be, we have to look at the letters that come after to see if it makes a word. So we have the letter, so let's try with B first. So we have the letter B, then we have the possibility of the letter E, then we drop down to G, then we have the possibility of the letter I, possibility of two N's, possibility of the letter I, possibility of the letter N, and we drop down to G. So that makes the word beginning. All right, now we have the possibility of O, W, or B. I already see a word right now. If we take the W and then we take the possibility of the letter I and then the two L's, that makes the word will. So we have a word right there. So we drop down the word will. Now we have the possibility of an O, a W, or a B. So I'm already seeing a word right now. So if we take the possibility of the letter B and we take the possibility of the letter E and we take the letter C and we take the possibility of the letter O and we take the possibility of the letter M and we take the possibility of the letter E, we have the word become. Next, we have a T, so we drop down the T, and now we have the possibility of the letter D, H, or N. So I already see a word right here. We can make the word the. If we take the possibility of the letter H and we take the possibility of the letter E, that makes the word the. And then the last one is really easy. Let's take the possibility of the letter E, possibility of the letter N, and possibility of the letter D, and that makes the word end. So the whole sentence is, let go and the beginning will become the end. All right, now what does this mean? Well, in the Origins trailer, it says every story has a beginning and an end. Now, why would they talk about the end of the story in the beginning? Because remember, Origins is the beginning of the zombie storyline. Because keep in mind, every time I say the word beginning, just replace it in your mind with the word Origins. So why in the trail of Origins, like, why would they talk about the end if it's the beginning of zombies? Because it says every story has an end, but Origins is the beginning. So why would they talk about the end in the beginning? Well, in the end of Origins, aka in the end of the beginning, we found out that it was the end of zombies and that we're going to be playing out of the kids' imagination and not as the dolls. So we're going to be in a different phase of zombies. Now pay attention here. The kids' imagination zombies that we've been playing as is like phase 1. Phase 1 ended in the end of Origins, because in the end Origins cutscene it shows us zooming out of the kids' imagination. And phase 2, where we will be playing out of the kids' imagination and into the real world, will begin in the next zombies game. So the beginning is the end of zombies, or the end of phase 1 of zombies. Let go and the beginning will become the end. Origins, which is the beginning, ended zombies with the cutscene at the end. It ended phase 1 of zombies, aka the kids' imagination phase, at the end. But it is the beginning at the same time. The beginning, which is Origins, is the end. Let go and the beginning will become the end. Mind blown. Now I repeated myself like 5 times in that one sentence, but if you still didn't understand it, rewind it. I'm purposely repeating myself so you could get like the idea through your head. But if you didn't understand that, go back and rewind it until you understand it. Also, the idea of the beginning being the end and the end being the beginning is like the whole idea of the infinite cycle in zombies. You guys know about the idea, like the whole idea in the zombie storyline, how everything goes in an infinite loop, all the maps take place in an infinite timeline? Well, that would explain the clock on Mob of the Dead. Right here, this is the clock above the cafeteria, and if you guys see right here, the clock begins at 6:45 and it ends around 8:15. Now, once it's at the beginning and then it goes to the end, it goes back to the beginning again, and it keeps doing that in an infinite cycle. Once it reaches the ending, it goes back to the beginning, and when it's at the beginning, it goes back to the end and then returns back to the beginning. The beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. Let go and the beginning will become the end. So that's there you have it. The clock is kind of representing the idea of the infinite cycle in zombies. Again, there you go. Number 3, deciphering the Mob of the Dead loading screen. So let's start off with a box code at the bottom right. So we got a set of numbers, and every number is connected to a letter. Now there are 26 letters in the English alphabet, so maybe because the first letter is number 13, maybe that is referring to the 13th letter in the alphabet, which is M, right? So let's just do it off of that. Okay, all right, now what you guys are seeing on screen right now, the thing that I'm typing to the right is basically I'm retyping the little box code that was on the Mob of the Dead loading screen, and what I'm typing here on the left is the English alphabet numbered 1 through 26. All right, so the first number we have in the box code is number 13, so number 13 is M, so we write down M. The next number we have in the code is 15, so if we go over here, we see that number 15 is an O. Next number that we have in the code box is the number 2, and number 2 is a B in the English alphabet. Next number we have is the number 15. Number 15 is an O. Next number we have is the number 6. Number 6 is an F. Next number we have is number 20. That's a T. Next number we have is the number 8. That is an H. Next number we have is a 5, which is an E. Next number we have the number 4, which is a D. Next number we have is the number 5, which is an E. Next number we have a 1, which is an A. And next number we have is a 4, which is a D. And then we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be A, B, C, D. And that doesn't really mean anything. So this box right here spells out Mob of the Dead. So what's up with the 1, 2, 3, 4 at the end? Mob of the Dead 1, 2, 3, 4. Or Mob of the Dead A, B, C, D. Well, at first when Mob of the Dead came out, there's a little bit of controversy about who was the Mob of the Dead, because obviously we know that the zombies are the living dead, right? So people thought whenever it said Mob of the Dead, people thought that it was talking about the zombies, but this little code right here told us that the Mob of the Dead is the 1, 2, 3, 4 characters, our 4 main characters. And you guys might be thinking, but wait, how are they the Mob of the Dead? How are they dead? Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody knows this, but obviously while you're playing Mob of the Dead, it like symbolizes hell and you're like dead. So yeah, that's why our 4 characters are called the Mob of the Dead. Alright, the second code we have right here in the top right is something we like to call the ADFG cipher. Not something we like to call, something it is called. It's called the ADFGX cipher, and basically the ADFGX cipher was created by Germans in World War I so they could communicate between each other without the enemy forces knowing what they're saying. It was created in World War I. You see that? That's another reference to Origins. Mob of the Dead is making another reference to Origins. So I'm going to teach you guys how to use this ADFGX cipher. So basically what you want to do is on the top column you want to write ADFGX, and on the left column you want to write ADFGX, and in the middle you want to write the alphabet. But there's one simple rule to it. Basically, you have to put J and I in the same box, as you guys can see right here. Now let's say I want to write the word help. So obviously the first letter I would need is an H, right? So what you do is you treat this like some type of graph with coordinates. So to get the H, I have to, basically you write down D and F. So that makes H. Next, if you want the E, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to type A and X. Now, if you want the L, you type in F and A. And lastly, if you want the P, you're going to type in F and X. So basically, you treat it like coordinates on a graph. All right, now, since that's too easy, we're not done. Basically, what you want to do is you want to have a keyword, right? So for this instance, let's use our keyword. Let's let our keyword be dog, D-O-G, right? So what you would do is you would write from top to bottom, left to right. You'd write in D-F-A-X, F-A, and F-X under the word dog, like that, in order from top to bottom, left to right. That's not the last step. Now what you want to do is you want to take your keyword dog and you want to put it in alphabetical order, right? When you put it in alphabetical order, basically, obviously how there's like 3 columns, you want to put the columns also in alphabetical order to switch it up. So basically what we're going to do is, obviously D is the first letter that comes before O and G, so you would put D right there. Next, after D comes G alphabetically, so you'd put G right there, and O, you'd put it right there, right? So that is the final product. That is what we are seeing right here in the Mob of the Dead loading screen. Now you guys might be thinking, all right, well, now that we know how to do it, all we have to do is take the Mob of the Dead loading screen code and decode it the way, basically do reverse of what I just told you to do with, you know, like writing the code. Just do that in reverse, and we could find out what this says, right? Well, here's the thing. You can't really, and this is why this ADFGX German cipher was extremely successful and complicated in World War I. Basically, when you're doing it reverse, how are you supposed to know what the keyword is? Only the Germans knew what the keyword was, right? Basically, the way to find the keyword is extremely complicated. I'm not going to explain it because I would have to make a whole another video talking about it and make the video like an extra 30 minutes long or something like that. And it's not just as simple as, like, for example, I use dog as the keyword for the example of typing the word help. It's not as simple as just trying to make a word out of the 3 letters DGO. There's actually another step after that to complicate it even more, but it wasn't necessary for the video to get the point across, so that's why I didn't talk about it. But here's what you need to know about the code. Basically, what the keyword is the keyword is portal. And what's funny about this is right next to it on the left, it says portals right there. So it's kind of funny to me how it took like over a year for the biggest and baddest YouTubers or the biggest and baddest zombie YouTubers to figure this out, and it was right there on the left. So that's kind of cool how they left it right there. And basically, when you take the keyword and you do the whole reverse deciphering thing, basically what this message says right here is, it says the giant is in France. Now that's really interesting. Obviously, that's making a reference to didnt and the map origins. Now, obviously, I've talked about this in a video before. Didnt literally translates to the giants. Obviously, everybody knows the map. Didnt, basically, if you don't know, it was a factory where they built weapons and stuff like that, and that is where they built the giants for origins. After building the giants there in the facility called Didnt, they then teleported the giants to origins, aka France, and they used these giants basically to try to win the war, World War I. Also, something I really like is I really like how they made the keyword portals, because in order for the giant to be in France, they have to use the portals. And in order for you to decode the code, the giant is in France, you have to use the keyword, which is portal. You see what I'm saying? That's kind of cool. I really like that. Also, I'm going to be making a whole other video talking about this because there's this really weird complication about it that I don't understand. So that's going to be in top 5 zombie mysteries #2. So wait for that. Alright, number 4, the comic book Easter egg and the symbolism behind the comic book. Alright, now I am 100% convinced that this comic book was written by Weasel himself, and the reason we know this is because when you first start up zombies, you get certain journals from the characters, and the Weasel's journal says, "Speaking of Icarus, same old story. The editor defaced my art, scrawling nasty little comments on every page." This shows us that the title of the comic is Icarus, and that the writing on the comic is from the editor who wrote the nasty comments that Weasel was talking about in his journal. Now you can see if you zoom in into the picture that the editor writes things like, "Please don't send any more samples," and "A flying man, do you really believe a man can fly?" and even making fun of it by asking, "Where are the lady's shoes?" A lot of people don't know this, but the reason the editor is making fun of Weasel's comics is because, keep in mind, Mob of the Dead takes place in the 1930s, in the early 1930s, right? In real life history, comic books didn't like take off. Comic books were, and like superheroes and stuff like that, they were considered extremely weird in the 1930s until 1938, which is when comic books and superheroes, the whole idea of superheroes was born on 1938, and this is, Mob of the Dead takes place in the early 1930s. So this is why his Weasel's comics of superheroes and stuff like that weren't accepted, because it was extremely odd for the time. Now the superhero right here in Weasel's comic actually represents somebody named Shock Gibson. Now let me tell you the story of Shock Gibson. I'm gonna read this from the actual comic book. Charles Gibson was a wealthy scientist who was testing if electricity could have a positive impact on people's bodies. When experimenting with electricity and chemicals, lightning bolts struck his lab, causing it to explode, and Gibson came out unscathed and could generate electricity from his hands. This is a reference to the afterlife mode in Mob of the Dead where you could like shock electricity from your hands. He swore to use the power for good and changed his name to Shock Gibson. His powers gave him the ability to fire bolts from his hands and fly. Shock Gibson fights an evil doctor named Baron Van Kumpf, who's trying to take over the world with his inventions such as ray guns and large ray machines. He also commands an army of zombies. This is obviously a huge reference to zombie storyline, as this evil doctor slash scientist representing Dr. Richthofen, and Richthofen controlling an army of zombies. One of the Mob of the Dead crew members even says, "These hellhounds look a lot like the ones from Weasel's drawings." Well, if you look at the dogs slash lions in the comic book, they look a lot like the ones in Mob of the Dead, especially this one that is coming out of the wall exactly how the dogs come out of the walls in Mob of the Dead. Now, as you guys know, Mob of the Dead is heavily connected with the map Origins. Now, if you look at all the comic book cover pictures for Shock Gibson, you notice that he's in a war zone. As you can see in this picture, he is carrying a tank and there are soldiers in the background. In this picture, Shock Gibson is fighting what looks like a German because of the uniform, and he is fighting a man that is wearing the World War I pilot uniform, the same one that Nikolai was wearing in Origins. Also in this picture, it looks like he is carrying some type of tank or cannon, and there are the same World War I planes in the background. But most importantly, there are soldiers underground in the trenches. Trenches were used in World War I for soldiers, as we know from Origins. Alright, so everything sounds like World War I, right? But if you actually look it up, the story of Shock Gibson, it actually takes place in World War II. Now, the reason why would Treyarch put World War II as a teaser for Origins, which takes place in World War I, in Mob of the Dead, right? Well, the explanation for this is most likely at the time of Mob of the Dead, Treyarch was not sure if the map Origins was going to take place in World War I or World War II. So that's why they put in the story of Shock Gibson, because the story of Shock Gibson is a combination of World War I and World War II, because it takes place in World War II, but everything about it is World War I. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a mixture of the two wars because they weren't sure themselves if they were going to pick World War I or World War II for origins. So the story of Shaw Gibson is symbolizing origins. But what about the story of Icarus? After all, the name of Weasel's comic isn't Shaw Gibson. The name of his comic is Icarus, but it is just that Shaw Gibson is another representation of Icarus. So that's why I told you guys about the story of Shaw Gibson. Now remember how I said in 5 Things number 5 that origins was based off of Greek mythology? Well, the story of Mob of the Dead symbolizes something from Greek mythology too. The story of Icarus, which is an ancient Greek mythical tale, symbolizes Mob of the Dead. The story of Icarus goes as such. Once upon a time on the island of Crete, there was a great king whose name was Minos. Now take note that this island of Crete symbolizes Alcatraz.
He had living in his palace at Knossos a great architect and inventor who went by the name of Daedalus.
Now keep in mind, Daedalus is symbolizing Weasel because Weasel was an inventor also.
But he is especially supposed to have built the great labyrinth for King Minos, in which to keep the renowned Minotaur. After Daedalus built the labyrinth, though, King Minos did not want him to be able to tell its secrets to anybody else. So he kept Daedalus a prisoner in a tall tower.
You hear that? A prison. This is obviously representing and symbolizing Alcatraz.
All alone with his only son, Icarus. Now, Daedalus and Icarus did not like being prisoners, and so Daedalus began to think about how they could get away.
Daedalus thinking about how they could get away from the prison is like Weasel creating the escape plan in Mob of the Dead.
He often watched the birds in the sky, observed their method of flight, and admired their complete freedom. One day, it dawned upon Daedalus that the only way to escape his imprisonment was to create wings for himself and his son. As Daedalus was a remarkable craftsman, he managed to create wings that stuck to a wooden frame with wax.
Daedalus creating wings connected to a wooden frame is symbolizing the plane on Mob of the Dead on the roof because it is made of wings connected to a wooden frame. Now just in case you guys didn't know, the plane on Mob of the Dead actually has a name. And the name of the plane on Mob of the Dead is Icarus. If you guys don't believe me, on the official Call of Duty wiki page, the plane is called Icarus. So this plane represents and symbolizes Icarus in this mythical story.
He created 2 pairs of such wings and gave one to Icarus.
So after Daedalus gave the pair of wings to Icarus, right before they're about to take off and fly, Daedalus warned Icarus about the dangers of flying, and he told him not to fly too high or else the heat from the sun will melt off the wax from your wings and you will no longer be able to fly. And he told him not to fly too low or your weight will bring you down and make you smash into the ocean. Icarus nodded. He said, yes, yes, father, I got you. So basically, the sum of the story is Icarus did not listen to his dad, Daedalus, and he ended up crashing out of the sky and smashing into the ocean. And remember, Icarus represents and symbolizes the plane from Mob of the Dead. And what happened to the plane of Mob of the Dead? Exactly. It crashed out of the sky and smashed into the ocean. You see the symbolism? So the story of Shaw Gibson represents the story of origins, and the story of Icarus represents the story of Mob of the Dead. You see what I mean when I say that Zombies is based off of Greek mythology? At least those 2 maps are. So yeah, that's the symbolism behind that. Number fudging 5. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm about to talk about this one. 2:35 in the morning. That's 2:35 a.m. I'm recording this super early in the morning or super late at night. I really don't feel comfortable talking about this one. You'll see what I mean. Alright, anyway. Number 5, the inspiration behind the red eyes in Mob of the Dead. If you guys didn't know, there is a real-life article about demons and ghosts in Alcatraz called The Story of Cell 14D. Now, Cell 14D was an isolation cell meant for the worst of Alcatraz. I'm talking the biggest and the baddest, right? Now, in the Mob of the Dead trailer, you can find a hidden image flash extremely quickly if you pause the video at the right half of a millisecond. Yes, the image literally flashes that quickly. It flashes extremely quickly on screen, and the picture that flashes is a picture of Cell 14D, as you guys can see right here. I'm going to play the trailer right here.
So then we went to Alcatraz. Alcatraz has had so many different incarnations.
And it looks like nothing flashed, right? Well, let's rewind that and play it back, and you guys will see right there. You see that? That is a picture of Cell 14D. You cannot regularly see this unless you like edit the video and slow it down and like watch it in slow-mo. Now, how does Cell 14D have to do with the inspiration of the red eyes in Mob of the Dead? Well, let me tell you guys about the article of Cell 14D. A man was sent to cell 14D for bad behavior. He goes in the cell and starts to scream that something with red eyes is in there with him. The man screamed for 7 hours straight. Yes, 7 hours straight. This is literally what the article says. Imagine, you have to like picture or just like imagine in your head or realize how long 7 hours of straight screaming is. That is literally more than 1/4 of a full day of straight screaming. Can you imagine? More than 1/4 of an hour. I mean, more than 1/4 of a full day, just straight up screaming and screaming and screaming. And he's talking about there's this thing with red eyes in there with him. After the 7 hours of screaming, he stopped screaming, and the next day, the guards open the cell and they find him with red hand marks around his neck, and he is dead. After professionals studied the case, they concluded that it was a non-self-conflicted strangling. Basically, they were saying that it wasn't possible for him to have killed himself because the human body can have not physically have done that much damage to itself. It's not like possible in the physical human's body's capability to inflict that much damage on itself. Because remember, whenever you're in these cells and stuff like that, obviously they strip you down. There's no, they don't, like, you don't have the sporks with you or anything. Like, you have nothing. It's literally you and like the freaking prison clothes. So there's no weaponry obviously in there. And yeah, that's how they found him. Red hand marks around his neck, and he's dead. And besides this story, there are many other articles where prisoners witness figures with red eyes. When they interviewed the prisoners, all the prisoners said that there was one specific spirit that we would always see. We'd always see this figure with red eyes. We would always see him, and he always had red eyes.
Oh, there's another secret world hidden within these walls. The cold, unlit cells reserved for solitary confinement. The isolation drove many men insane, but even madness was preferable to death at the hands of a legendary, invisible killer. According to one account, an inmate screamed for 3 days that there was another man in his isolation cell. When guards could no longer ignore his cries, they finally opened his door, and the inmate was found dead, with unexplainable marks around his neck.
And that is where the inspiration for why the zombie's eyes are red in Mob of the Dead Alcatraz. Also, remember how I told you guys that cell 14D was meant for the worst of the worst? Well, Al Capone, aka Scarface, aka the worst prisoner in all of Alcatraz history, he actually spent time in cell 14D. And what's funny about that is Al Capone's ghost is the #1 reported ghost by the prisoners that attended Alcatraz. They said they would always see figures of Al Capone, and you could hear him, you could hear his ghost playing the banjo that he used to play before he died, and they could feel his presence in there and all around the prison, along with the red-eyed spirits. This is where the inspiration for the zombies with red eyes originally came from. And if you guys didn't know, in the beginning of the Mob of the Dead cutscene, basically those pistols that we don't get to use, and everybody was like, wait, what the heck, those pistols aren't even on the map, why are they in the cutscene? Those pistols are making a reference to Al Capone. The guns that they are holding is Al Capone's famous gun. If you guys look right here, I looked it up, and Al Capone's famous gun and his signature pistol that he always had on him, obviously before he went to prison, was that pistol right here. As you guys can see right here, yep, that's his signature pistol, the one that was in the cutscene in the beginning of Mob of the Dead. Something you notice in this picture of cell 14D that flashes in Mob of the Dead trailer is Teddy the teddy bear is in this cell. Oh my god, this tells us so much about the zombie storyline, actually. This actually leads me to believe that Teddy is the one in control of the zombies on Mob of the Dead, because Teddy, besides the zombies on Mob of the Dead, is literally the only character ever seen with red eyes, besides the zombies on Mob of the Dead. So the red-eyed zombies on Mob of the Dead and Teddy are the only two things that we've ever seen with red eyes. Also, Teddy is placed in the room where the idea of the red eyes originated from. So you see what I'm saying? Like, there's like a direct connection with the red-eyed zombies and Teddy. So like, really, how can you like deny it now? Now, once again, it is a theory, but there's so much proof behind it that it's hard for me to call it a theory. You know what I mean? But that's not all, because Teddy isn't an actual character. Rather, he symbolizes someone in the zombie storyline. So catch my next video where I 100% explain the symbolism behind Teddy. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you're new to the channel, I do a lot of these types of zombie mystery storyline videos. So please subscribe and like the video, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace!